the real great example, and it's only 1 minute long, but it really kind of sums up their artistic genius with how it makes us feel, is this little animated segment of The End.
And in the end, you may.
I just love that. I feel like I could just watch that like a 1,000 times. But then we end up with that giving birth to music like this, which I think is directly intended to be Beatles-like. It's a form of tribute, if you will. This is Tears for Fears. It's a very interesting song on just how influenced they were, and literally trying to depict a sense something new and original, but very much tied to the Beatles. I think it's also important to look at the giant list of people who have covered their music in their own versions of Beatles songs.
What would you do if I sang out of tune?
I mean, it sounds very, very different than the original. Joe Cocker is doing his own thing with it. And this is a clip from the most important cultural event of that generation. Even later, even we get into the 90s and the 2000s, we see tremendous examples of remakes of Beatles songs.
Slip away across the universe. Nothing's gonna change my world.
So it's artists building upon. They're not just simply going out and recreating what the Beatles did. They're infusing some of their own self into that. How is that not part of pluralism? How is that not bringing that all back in? That really what the Beatles are giving rise to, what they're giving permission to do, is to explore a sound universe that is artificial, that is contrived between different elements. It doesn't matter whether those elements are black and white or old and new or whatever, just combining different ideas together, making it pluralistic. That's what the Beatles thrust onto the world. And then how all we reacted to that. I mean, the music of the 1970s and the success of artists like John Lennon through even the 1980s when he passes away. But you look at the success of Paul McCartney and Wings and George Harrison and all the different projects that he was a part of. How these guys are still influential throughout the 1970s and the 1980s, really. Their impact is quite huge. So the modern generation, the way we record music, how we sample, how we play with tape speeds, to how we're trying to advance the art of musical composition, how we can go from hard rock to folk rock to something psychedelic, all on the same album, all within the same collection, is all this, all of what really makes the Beatles the most important group of artists since Beethoven. Beethoven was really the most important musical figure in the development of music since Monteverdi. So really the connectivity between these individuals, I think the elements change, but their impact and how so few people can be involved in such tremendous change going forward is why they're important and why they're the subject of our class today. Art.
Yellow Submarine.
Could we have had Andy Warhol? Would Andy Warhol's art be as significant if it wasn't not for the elevation of what the Beatles were doing with popular art? Andy Warhol, I mean, it's very interesting. And how, in a way, the Beatles were portrayed as, I've read this more than once, the Picasso of music. Picasso was still deep in his game in the 1960s. So, you know, that those things are all connected. Artists listen to music, musicians look at artwork, they see architecture. They're all, these things are very much, I think, interrelated. The influence of the Beatles extends far beyond music. Commercialism, capitalism, economics, a lot of different things. But I think I guess my purpose in really in this course, wasn't so much to like review the timeline of the Beatles as much as give real insight as to really why they're so significant, to really what their impact was. And I want to encourage you all to explore some of these musical examples that we went over today. There was a lot of them, a lot of different things. But I think to kind of, when you listen to the Beatles, listen for, what subgenre would this song be? What's going on in this piece of music? And then, you'll find other pieces by other artists in the future that maybe trace back to elements that are going on in that song. They're critical listening with the Beatles is a very fun thing to do, because especially with the White Album and Sgt. Pepper's in particular, there's so much to listen to. I do want to say, just related to Jack's comment, look at Abbey Road. Look at what they're wearing on Abbey Road. They're all wearing, their hairstyles are different now. They've all developed into individuals. The foreshadowing of the coming, and then how different was the music of Wings from what George Harrison was doing? I mean, I think it's fascinating to see them grow as individuals, but what they did together, what they did as a team, as a unit, then becomes the paradigm for a lot of other bands. I mean, from Coldplay, I was thinking about playing Coldplay examples today. I just knew I wouldn't have time. To what was going on in Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, Duran Duran. I mean, we see a lot of important music happening within groups, not necessarily based on individuals like David Bowie or Prince or Elton John, who are all important. And we can't get Elton John without the Beatles. My goodness, the lacings of everything going on in Elton John that traces back to what was going on in the Beatles. So it becomes, I think, a fascinating way to listen to music. Just to think critically when you're listening to the Beatles music about what you hear there. And then as you listen to some of these other artists, Elton John's a great example. Be critical about what you hear and where maybe what he's doing, some of that tracking and sampling and the style of music, the way the folk rock, it's all in there. That really what the Beatles gave us was what we are still doing in music today, from hip hop to hard rock.